Let's take a look now at how we can render turntables and other videos directly out of Zbrush. So I want to do a turntable of this orc that's set up with a bust. So it's a little potentially a collectible, maybe for 3D print. And I want to do a turntable so I can show this off. So the first thing I want to do is I want to set my document resolution to the resolution I want my video to be. So I'll go to Document, I'll turn off Constrain Proportion, and I'll set it to 1920 by 1080. That would be HD. Resize, say yes, and then Control N to clear the canvas. We'll zoom out the document, and then I'm just going to draw my character back on screen, zoom him out, and then get him nicely oriented in the center of the screen. Now, to do movies, we go to the movie menu here. We'll tear it off to the side of the screen, and we have the option to do the document or the window. I always select document because that gives me just the document window. If I do window, it's going to give me the full ZBrush interface. We have three options for size. I do large, which is 100% of my document resolution, which I set to HD. Now, I have the option to do a turntable here. If I go to my modifiers, here I can find the modifiers for the turntable. I can set my spin frame. It's going to be the y-axis, which is fine because we're looking straight down the z-axis. We want him to rotate around the y-axis. The number of frames, 180 frames for one cycle, and we're just going to do one cycle because of course we can loop the video. Now, we want to actually do the render itself. That's very, very simple. We simply press turntable. So I'm going to go ahead and press turntable, and you see what happens is it starts writing out the individual frames of the turntable. Until it is complete. Now I'm going to go to Overlay Image. I'm going to turn Overlay Image Opacity down to 0, and I'm going to turn the Title Image Opacity Fade In and Fade Out down to 0. If you have a title image or an overlay watermark, you can put them in there, but generally I leave those empty. Now, if I go to Movie and click Play, I can see my turntable. If I want to export this, I turn on High Quality and click Export, and we can export it as an MPG. Now, this is just the default renderer. This is not the prettiest render that we can do. So let's do this. Let's click Actual Size so we can get close up to the character, and I'm going to do a BPR render. So there's a nice BPR render. I'm going to go to my material settings, and I'm going to go to wax modifiers, and let's turn the wax modifier up. And then I'm going to go to render. Under render properties, I'm going to turn on wax preview, so that gives me some translucency to the skin. Now under render BPR shadow, I'm going to turn angle up, and I'm going to turn my raise up. Now let's do that render again, and you'll see that we get a much nicer look to our shadows and to our skin. There we go. We get a nice soft shadow, and it's much more appealing. Let's go to the light menu, and let's take the secondary light here. And we've got that set behind the object. If you click on that light, it brings it to the front. If you click on it again, it brings it to the back. And let's just put a little bit of color in that. Let's make it a cooler light, just like so. And we can turn up the intensity on a little bit. Go to our key light. That's set to 1, and that's just fine. I might make it a little more dramatic by bringing the light up here. Then I'll go to my material settings, and I'll go to modifiers, and I want to change my specular. So I'm going to open the specular curve, and I'm going to broaden it, and I'm going to turn my specular component down. There we go. So it's not quite so plasticky. Now let's do our render again. I'm going to come back up here to my movie frames, and I'm going to delete the frames that are still sitting in memory. I'm going to do a BPR render. Now it's going to take a little bit of time to do that render. And there's the effect that we get. Now watch this. If I go to the render menu, and I turn down the strength of my shadows, and then render again, if the shadows are too strong, I can actually dial them back a little bit. I can also go to Render, Render Properties, and I can turn on Ambient Occlusion. Now if I render again, you'll see I will get the addition of ambient occlusion shadows on here, but that is going to increase the render time. There we go. So let's do a turntable that's using this renderer. So leaving it in this rendered view, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click turntable again. Now what ZBrush will do is it's going to calculate each frame and render each frame before it writes it out. So we're going to get a much higher quality turntable now because each frame will be rendered using the BPR renderer. So I'm going to pause this recording because this is actually going to take a bit of time to render. I'm going to pause and then come back after this turntable is complete. So the render has now completed. If we go to the movie menu and click play movie, now we can see our full turntable with the high quality render. And again, if we want to export that, we just click make sure high quality is checked, click export, and then we export it as an MPEG. Now, I can save my movie. If I click Save As, it'll save it as a ZMV file. A ZMV file is a ZMovie file format. So I could open those frames up again later and then export it at any point. Or add to this, if I were to render another movie at this point, it would actually append those frames onto the end of that turntable. So let's take a look now at another type of movie that we can record. I'm going to switch over to this version of this alien bust. Now, this version of the alien bust actually has undo history attached to it. So if I go back to my regular standard brush, you can see my undo history right here. If I come all the way back to the beginning, let's turn on solo so we're just looking at the head itself. If I come all the way back to my first undo, it's going to take a moment to load that. There we go. We're at undo history state 1. There we go, 1 out of 2,685. This is the sphere that I started that bust from. Now, if I want to append the next movie onto the end of the last movie, I would just go ahead and render it, but I don't want to, so I'm going to click delete to delete those frames. I don't want to save that. So now, instead of doing a turntable, I'm going to do a forward history. So this will record the entire sculpting process by stepping through my undo history. So I'm going to make sure that I'm on document, large, and again, our document resolution is still set to HD. So I'm going to click F history. And what it's going to do, it's going to load through a smooth camera transition rotating around the sphere while I sculpt it into that alien head. Now, it's actually quite interesting that ZBrush is able to determine what angle I was looking at the model from at each movement, and then moves the camera to match the view that I took as I was sculpting. So you're always at an optimal view for the changes that are being made, and then it smoothly transitions between each one of those. And this is a great way to sort of share training or share a process if you just want to do a speed sculpt and put it up on ZBrush Central. This is a great way to do that. So obviously this is going to take a bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and let this record, and then we'll come back and take a look at the resulting film. So that history film has finished recording now. So if we go to movie, play movie, we can see it play back in real time. So it's quite fast and fluid in the playback, and it shows your entire sculpting process from beginning to end. Everything that's in your undo history will play back in this video. So to exit out of this recording, we're just going to go ahead and hit escape rather than watch the whole thing play back. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at the movie options in ZBrush, and going forward now you can create your own turntables and histories and share those and be able to feature that aspect of your work. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.